I want to talk about how you deprogram somebody. At the end, I want to talk about denazification and how to deprogram somebody by force. But let's start with willing deprogramming. Let's start with street epistemology. It's a psychological technique that is used to get people's guards down and ask them logical questions that follow one to the next to get them to understand that what they are doing or thinking or believing or saying is not right. Let's just watch a second of this Anthony Magnabosco stuff. He stands out here on a street corner and asks people questions. That's it. And films it.
How are you?
Fine.
Good. I'm Anthony. What's your name?
Elissa.
Nice to meet you.
I'm an employee here.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'd shake your hand, but you got
Yeah.
it.
Sorry.
How do you spell the first name?
Elissa.
Oh, okay, good.
Starting off friendly, non-confrontational, making sure her guard stays down. That is point number one. It's the most important point.
Is flagging down anyone that would actually speak with me to understand how they came to their belief in God, like the strength of it, and what process did they use to get to it.
Jehovah's Witnesses cannot, turn down an opportunity to talk about how they came to believe that God's real.
And I'm timing it for 5 minutes, so I know your time is valuable, and you can bolt if you want. If we were to have a belief scale, Alyssa, where 0% is I have no confidence that my belief is true, and I'm 100% confident that my belief is true in this God, you could be anywhere in between. Where would you put yourself?
100%.
Hey. Wow. What is putting you so high up on the confidence of your belief?
He always starts off with the confidence scale, and he uses the confidence scale to move him into the next set of questions. Why do you believe that? Which is the thing that he really wants to know. Why do you believe that? So that he can pull it apart. It's a basic Socratic reasoning style that, in my personal opinion, is as close as we're going to get to deprogramming people without tying them to a chair and doing it by force. You know, there used to be companies that would do that. Tie people, they would kidnap a family member for a fee, take them to a cabin in the woods, tie them to a chair, and forcefully deprogram them for 3 or 4 days straight. Obviously involved violence and everything else, and that company they didn't exist long. It was illegal for them to exist in the first place, but, families of cult members are desperate. They're desperate to get their family out. So when you can't do that, this is the next best thing, street epistemology.
What is putting you so high up on the confidence of your belief?
I've seen it. I've seen my faith in works, and how God has throughout history maneuvered things, and so I highly believe in the existence of God, and I've studied His Word, and so I see it. My belief is very strong.
So her answer, I see it. The reason I believe is because I see it. Now he's probably going to ask her to elaborate on that. What do you mean? Can you tell me what that is to you, how that plays out in your everyday life? Got to keep it non-confrontational. You got to keep her guard down. Make her think you either have no investment in this or you are on her side in this.
I attend 3 meetings out of the week.
Wow.
So
You go quite a bit.
yes,
Now,
that's great.
I don't ever want to assume which God are you believing in.
I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so I believe Jehovah God.
Okay.
Oh, God, this makes me vomit every time. I'm sorry. I'm going to take a detour for a second. When I was little, my mom used to tell me that there really are monsters in my bedroom. There are demons in there. But demons shudder at the name of Jehovah. So all I have to do is say Jehovah over and over again, and I'll be safe. They won't be able to get to me. And now I shudder when I hear people say Jehovah because it's so cringy and painful. Oh, God. Jehovah's Witnesses probably say that I'm infested with demons or some other stupid shit. Anyway, if you notice, she also said, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's one of the big things that they do. They aren't a Jehovah's Witness. They are trying to make it real in their heads that Jehovah is real and they are one of his witnesses. I don't feed into that. They are a Jehovah's Witness to me. I refuse to accept any of that nonsense, and I'm not going to aid them in connecting them to the religion even deeper than they already are.
Okay. And you go 3 times a week. What would you say is the main reason why you accept Jesus and the Jehovah God? Sorry.
He knows all of this already. He wants to make her feel like he's deferring to her for all of his knowledge and information and trusting what she has to say. And he's not doing this cynically. He's doing this to understand. But it's a de-brainwashing, a deprogramming technique. Anyway, like in the beginning, he said, "What is your reason for believing it?" And she said, "I see it in my everyday life." And that was not a satisfactory answer. But he accepted it as an answer and then circled back around and said, "Why do you believe it?" Non-confrontational. He wants to get real answers to this without throwing her guard up. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, let's continue.
The Jehovah God, and you're so confident in the strength of your belief. Could you point to one major thing? Is there one major thing that's causing you to be so confident on it?
I think throughout my life, I've come from a lot of struggles, and throughout my life, Jehovah has always been there for me. And there are times when I'm like, God, I just need an answer. I just need to know, and my answer is my question is answered. And so I have that strong belief. And like I said, throughout history and studying, I mean, these are things that you can be found, even archaeologists have uncovered.
So here's what Anthony Magnabosco is probably hearing right now. She's telling him, my belief is based on evidence, and if the evidence changed, I would change my mind. That's not true, and he needs to get her to accept that that's not true without throwing up her guard. This isn't a very long one. He does like 30-minute, hour-long interviews sometimes, but in an ideal scenario, when he had the time, he would probably zero in on it and say, well, tell me more about it. So let's say hypothetically that this didn't happen or you didn't see that. Is there something else that kind of keeps you in this religion? If you're right, I want to be right too. And she'll jump to the next thing. She will effectively give him a concession on this thing. Okay, you're right. It doesn't matter if we have archaeological evidence. Yeah, you're right. We don't have archaeological evidence even. She will concede that and move to the next thing until she just runs out of things. And inevitably, at the end of this conversation, she will, if it were longer, she would just say, I just believe it. I believe it because I believe it, and that's it. There's no other, it's not deeper than that. I just do. It's based on faith. And when you get down to the it's just based on faith bit, usually you stop there and you do like another session later, maybe. But if you wanted to go further past it's just faith-based, you could say, if it's faith-based, then why should I trust that this, try to group yourself together with her. Why should I trust that we're correct on this instead of a Muslim being correct on this? Don't make it about another denomination of Christianity specifically. You don't want to draw our attention to how do you know better than Catholics, for example, because then she'll go into denominational differences. Well, the Catholics believe in the Trinity. We don't believe in the Trinity. The Catholics believe he died on a cross. We think he died on a stake. We don't want to get buried in the minutia. We want to question the entire belief system, the basis for the faith. So you'd ask her, how do we know that we are correct rather than a Muslim or like a Buddhist or something? How can we know? And the answer is, of course, we can't. Your faith is just as valid and real and tangible and trustworthy as the Muslim or the Buddhist or the whoever. And when you get them to realize that, when you get them to accept that it's all faith-based, just let them stew on it for a while and maybe come back and do it again later. That's how you deprogram, de-brainwash people. Denazification isn't really something that we can look to as an example of what to do in America because it was a complete violation of human rights, which when you're dealing with like Nazis, like actually full blown, these people supported Hitler and all that, maybe human rights should be sacrificed for the sake of denazifying Germany at the end of the war, right? But we can't do that here in America. So denazification efforts are of limited use to us. However, we can look to the past and maybe derive some lessons from it. In denazification efforts, first and foremost, they made it shameful to believe these things or to do these things or whatever. It was an embarrassment. People didn't want to admit to supporting like the Nazi cause. When the Allies came in, they banned swastikas. That was an extremely important step. They banned any outward support of Hitler or whatever. And another thing that aided Hitler in his rise was the church. The church helped him make his way to the very top. So Allies banned the church from involving politics in their religious services. There was a full-blown denomination of Christianity that called themselves the German Christians. They were going to go by the Christian nationalists, but Hitler vetoed the name. Anyway, they were very, very political, and Hitler was fine with that. It was selectively banning people from talking about politics. Anyway, that was one of the early steps. Also, Perseelschein letters. Persil was the laundry detergent they used, and Perseelschein letters were basically letters that victims of Nazi oppression could write in favor of Nazis in Spruchkammer courts. Spruchkammer courts were designed to charge Nazis with war crimes and things, and Nazis could get out of it if they could prove that they were working against the Nazi cause by getting a Perseelschein letter from somebody. Those were some of the main ways in which Germany was denazified. Not really stuff that we can apply today outside of shaming people, making them feel embarrassed by the things that they believe. In the 90s, there was an organization that used to kidnap people and bring them to a cabin in the woods and tie them to a chair and forcibly deprogram them. Here's how that worked. It's a book by Robert J. Lifton called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism that talks about this at length. During the Korean War, there were a lot of conflicts with the Chinese, between the US and the Chinese. And the Chinese were running psychological experiments on American citizens. And one day, seemingly out of the blue, America starts getting footage from China of things like this.
My name is Harold Webb from West Palm Beach, Florida. My name is Aaron Wilson from Urania, Louisiana. This is a very happy moment for me, for now I am free from McCarthyism. Friends, the only way to stop fascism in America is to do as I have done, stand up and fight for our rights.
My name is Louis Griggs, and my home is at Jacksonville, Texas. I stayed behind to escape the Red Bait and McCarthy, and to assure that I'll never again have to fight in another unjust war as I did in Korea. Even if I had won in repatriation, the fates of Dickinson and Batchelor would have stopped me.
My name is Richard Tennyson. I live in Alden, Minnesota. People who hate war and stand up for their beliefs are faced with McCarthy and his fascist cut-control House Un-American Activities Committee.
House of Un-American Activities Committee, remember that.
I will return someday when I can speak for peace lawfully.
At the time, communism was the bane of America's existence, and you could go to jail if you were a communist. Even if you didn't go to jail, they'd ruin your life. They would tear it apart. You would lose your bank. They would mail you a check for the contents of your account and close your account. You would lose your job. The bank would foreclose on your house, the whole 9 yards. The House of Un-American Activities Committee was a House of Representatives committee that did this kind of thing, went around and did this stuff to people. Anyway, here's how the brainwashing worked in China. They capture American citizens and treat them like the Germans did in concentration camps. Bad. One guy said he was kept in a cell with his hands and his feet handcuffed together permanently. That was it. They never came off. If he needed to use the bathroom, a guard would come in and unbutton his pants for him and pull him down. And that was it. They wouldn't clean him up. They wouldn't nothing. When he ate, he had to eat out of a bowl on the floor like a dog. He would stay there for weeks at a time, months even, and they would send fellow prisoners in to share a cell with him who were free, who could walk around freely. And they said, yeah, I just told them what I knew about this stuff. And they took the chains off pretty instantaneously. So what do you know about it? Try to get information out of him. The doctor genuinely, it was a doctor that was describing this. He genuinely knew nothing. He was just a low-level guy who was trying to treat the wounded, and that's it. He knew, like, where the troops were when they were captured and where they were, neighboring encampments and things, and that's it. But it was useless information at that time. The information had gone stale by the time they were doing this on him. They would take him in front of a judge, and the judge would treat him like absolute shit and say that he deserves to die. But instead, they're going to give him an education as long as he can just give them something, anything at all. Just tell us where you were stationed. And they already knew that. So he said, well, what's it going to hurt? Fine, I'll tell him where I was stationed. Just break through that wall. So he'll give them information, anything at all. And when he gave them the information, where was I stationed, which they already knew, they took the chains off and he got to just stay in the cell. They would ask him more completely pointless, meaningless, and useless information. What was the name of your commanding officer? That's not useful to the Chinese. If he told them, they'd give him some books to read in the cell. And then they send in a guard to stand guard by his cell, who is sympathetic to him, who cares about him, who wants to take care of him and help him. So the guard would sneak him some cigarettes every now and then. And the guard would say, just write something positive about China and positive about America. Negative about China, negative about America. And then hand them the positive thing about China and the negative thing about America. And that way, you can get more cigarettes, you can get more books, you can survive. You won't have to be a dog on the floor, literally eating out of a bowl. When they get a copy of these essays, they would post them on, like, boards all over the camp. So when your friends walk through, they would see you speaking positively about the Chinese government, and they would feel more comfortable doing it also. So that's what he did. Eventually, he gained enough favor that he went to an actual, it was like a school, basically. He's sitting in a classroom, and they were teaching Marxist theory, and it was just educational things. It wasn't propaganda. It was just stuff about capitalism and communism and how they clash and what corporatism is and things. And they would ask him academic questions about it. Every night, all the students and a leader would get together and they'd sit in a room and they would go around the group confessing to something that they did that was subversive, that was harmful to the Chinese movement. Now, there's nothing that they did because they're in prison. What could they have possibly done that would have been subversive? So they make things up. They lie about it. And at a certain point, over months of this, they come to the point where they start, like, their personality is breaking into two. A deep inner personality, like the one that they were born with, and the new personality designed to protect them from punishment. And the new personality completely usurps the old personality in every way for their own protection, so that they don't have anything else to confess. They don't even want to think something subversive because then they'd have to admit it. That would be one of the things that they came out and said. The goal is to break it off into a brand new personality. That's the point. Before long, they send this doctor into these classrooms to teach other students, giving him a position of authority, giving him respect. As all of this is happening, they're slowly replacing the guards in the school or in the prison or in the court system even. They're replacing the guards and the judge and everybody like they're actors with people that are more sympathetic to them. We're sorry. We didn't want you to have to go through that. We wish that you'd had an easier time. That was wrong. We got rid of the old people. You didn't deserve any of it. So as time's going on, the course of a year maybe, you're watching the bad people that were clearly corrupt be filtered out and replaced with good people. So now you're in a situation where you can genuinely appreciate Marxist theory, and you have a new personality that prevents you from thinking anything negative about the Chinese government, and everybody around you is really good to you. Honestly, truly, deep down, good. This doctor that I'm referring to is from the book Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, and he met with Robert J. Lifton, the writer, in France. He went from China to France because China now trusted him enough, like these people here, trusted him enough that he'd come back, that he wouldn't betray the party or anything like that. And the doctor met him at a cafe in France, and Lifton basically said you could see that he was conflicted. He didn't know who he was or what to do or what to think or anything, and he was afraid that it was a trick. But instead of blaming the Chinese and thinking that they're tricking him, because that'd be subversive, he started to believe everybody else was trying to trick him. The Chinese are the only ones telling the truth. Americans are lying to him. The doctor is lying to him. Everybody else is lying. That is how brainwashing works. In the 90s, there was a terrorist group that basically that captured this random woman. Weeks later, she makes an appearance doing a terrorist attack. She's participating in it willingly, intentionally, gives a speech about how evil these people are or whatever. Everybody's like, how did that happen? I don't understand. That's nuts. Just a random woman suddenly brainwashed into a cause. That's how it happens. A combination of good cop, bad cop, and Stockholm syndrome manipulated to the absolute maximum, basically. And then some. That is how brainwashing works. And you have to basically do the exact same process to de-brainwash, to deprogram. That's what would happen when they'd tie them to a chair in the woods. They would treat them like shit. They would make them eat off the floor like a dog. And slowly but surely replace the guards with people that are more sympathetic, more honest, nicer, want to help you. They'd get you to write something positive about the outside world. Positive about Catholicism, negative about Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. And something positive about Jehovah's Witnesses, negative about Catholicism. That's how brainwashing works. This is the only way to deprogram somebody as far as I'm concerned. The other ways are unethical, horrific, and wrong. This is as good as we've got, and it's not bad.
There are things that you can be found, even archaeologists have uncovered manuscripts, with God's name on it, so it's just, to me, it's a belief. It's real.
She says her reason for believing it is evidence-based, but we know it's not. Magna Bosco is going to point that out, and she's going to come up with a new reason.
Been proven scientifically and in every way.
So would you say that if you've had things going on in your life, and if you ask for Jehovah God to help, and then you see the results of it, yes, and then that bolsters the strength of your belief?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's interesting. Were you always in Jehovah's Witness?
No. Well, I was introduced as a youth, so I was very young. So yes, I do feel like it's been my whole life. But yes, as a youth.
Okay.
They don't have a name for this, but I call it Gold Star Witnesses. People that are born into it. I was born in. I'm a Gold Star Witness. My sister and my brother, not Gold Star Witnesses. They were not born in.
Because I've talked to many people on this campus and other campuses, and Hindus and Muslims and Christians and all sorts of Mormons and everything. And I have heard similar stories where they would say, I know that Allah is real. I know that Vishnu is real. Because when I cry out for help, I see this God working in my life.
He knows it's faith-based. He knows it's not evidence-based. And he's not starting from, I talk to Catholics and they tell me it's real. I talk to Baptists and they know it's real. He's starting from Muslims and Hindu because he knows that's what it really boils down to. He's trying to cut to the chase here.
I'm to the point where I'm 100% confident that my belief is true. Your story is extremely sincere and honest, and I appreciate you sharing it with me. However, it does remind me of similar stories that I hear from other people that would attribute these things to other gods.
This probably wasn't the right thing for him to say in this moment, because it kind of put him on an adversarial footing with her. He should really be, I mean, he's the expert on this, but if it were me, I would be trying to keep her guard down, make sure that she knows that I'm on her side, and I would be using the word we a lot, not you or I.
How might somebody go about figuring out which of you might be more correct in the belief than the other?
Well, if you believe in God and God's word, if you examine the scriptures, you will find the truth. Jesus outlines what his followers would be like. He also listed world events that would take place and have taken place, and ones that we have yet to see. But
So it's not evidence-based, is the bottom line. Now it's Bible-based. We know the Bible is real because we see things coming true in the Bible. Again, this is too short for him to dig into enough, but if he had more time, he would have tried to break it down even further and gone even deeper and kind of forced a concession in a non-confrontational way on the evidence thing.
But they have always come true.
Is it the book? Are you pointing to the book essentially?
God's word, the Bible? Yes.
Okay.
She sounds like she's a little defensive. Yeah, the conversation's over. You got to start over after she gets defensive.
God's word, the Bible? Yes.
Okay.
And again, we've studied it, and we've studied it against findings, against scientifically. I mean.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So, if science were to somehow come up with a way to disprove everything that you just mentioned, prophecy.
So it sounds like he's cutting to the chase here. Instead of trying to start by invalidating the evidentiary claims, he's just going with everything. Instead of starting with invalidating her evidence and then moving to invalidating the prophecy in the Bible, he's just saying, what if we could prove it all false?
And the history and these items, and if science could adequately explain that these things were not supernatural, do you think that you would still believe?
Absolutely. Faith is the assured expectation of things not seen.
That's the biblical definition of faith. So it's not about evidence is the point. And that's what he wanted her to admit.
Okay. So then your belief really isn't rooted in those things, it would sound like, that faith really is more important.
My faith, which I've gained through study and knowledge of the Bible.
She's defensive. Conversation over. He probably recognizes that, unfortunately.
Is it?
We're 30 seconds. We can go longer if you feel like it.
No, I got to go to work, actually.
Do you have a...
He sets a timer and he asks for this much time. Can you give me like 2 minutes? And they say yes. And at 2 minutes, he asks for longer. She was defensive. It was just not going to work out.
Definition of faith?
I'm sorry, what?
You had mentioned a definition or a description of faith.
Yes, in the Bible it says that faith is the assurance of things that are unseen.
Okay.
It's the assured expectation that these things will take place or that are happening are true.
Yeah, that's the definition in the Bible.
Even though you don't see them, like the wind that you don't see, but you can see its result, its effect.
So even if all those things in the Bible were to be explained by science, you'd still believe because of your faith?
Absolutely. But that won't happen because it is truth. And sure enough, everyone will eventually know it. So. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
There you go. That's how you de-brainwash somebody, deprogram somebody. Again, it takes multiple sessions, multiple tries, and you have to make sure that their guard doesn't go up. If their guard goes up, it could ruin it completely. If they recognize that you're trying to break it down and are adversarial in any way, it's over. And that may be it. You may not be able to save it. You may not be able to come back for another session. It may just not work. Anyway, that's how you deprogram somebody if you're curious. Let me know what you think in the comments.